So I've had a neurological disorder getting me hurt since age 7. I'm going to go over some of the things I've done to try to get better and get medical care since age 7, and maybe that will help. So I had an overdose at age 7. My mother liked to play around with pharmaceutical pills in her medicine cabinet, full bottles of Epicac, and she liked to force these drugs into a 7-year-old orphan child because nobody would ever care. It would shut him out, it would make him easy. She could change the channel and watch her own show. She could get her way on Halloween. She doesn't want her little kid going trick or treating and getting candy, but the father and the brother and everybody else says yes, so he's getting his costume on, all excited, happy to go out. Mother calls him, "Oh, come on over here, take these pills." And then I start vomiting in a toilet. I'm pale and I'm sick and I'm left kind of just vomit for 20 hours and my mother can baby me, stuff like that. My mother's jealous of my toys. She thinks people are out to get her. She sees things that aren't there, so she's going pretty nuts. And my father doesn't want anybody to know, so he's ignoring it and just letting it be projected onto me as my mother makes up stories. But while this goes on, and as I suffer, there's lots of people seeing this. There's teachers seeing this overdose change in me. There's lots of stuff going on. So, what do I do about this? Because, of course, I don't feel good. So, what do I do to figure out why I don't feel good all of a sudden? I was given medicine, now I don't feel good. Well, the first thing I do is I suck my skin. At the age of 7 years old or so, I start sucking on my arm. That doesn't help me because my mother makes up a story that that's called self-harming, and then the medications go up. So now I'm more dizzy and I'm more tired and I don't know how to describe how I feel. So sucking on my skin did not help me figure out what's wrong with me. At the age of 7 as well, I bring it up at a doctor's office. I figure if I bring it up at a doctor's office, then the doctor will know I'll get better, right? So I'm at the doctor's office and I bring up the overdose. I bring up the loss of vision at the time. My body I can't feel at the time at all. And then afterwards, my body feels differently. I explain this to the best of a 7-year-old's ability at the doctor's office. But my mother plays doctor. My mother goes, "Oh, I used to be a nurse. I'm a doctor, so I know what this is. It's called an allergy attack. I gave my son a bunch of meds, and he had an allergy attack." Then the doctor asks, "What medications was he on?" And my mother goes, "I don't remember. It's not important. We need to move on." And then my mother starts asking questions of the doctor that change the conversation. So, did me bringing this up to the doctor at age 7 in Westford help me at all? No. My mother ran over that right away. She made sure I didn't get help. And now my mother knew that I was seeking help too. So now my mother's going in the turbo mode to shut me up. Extra meds really, really hurt me. Take me out of the teachers and the doctors. Move me to Texas, 100 states away. Actually, it's only 30 states away to be exact. So you got a lot of problems where, nope, telling the doctor didn't get me help with my seizures, neurological disorder, and the fact that I couldn't feel my body. At times I was falling down. Now I never had felt this way in my life. Now my mother gave me an overdose and something's wrong with my body. I can't do what I did before. I was number one at treading water. Now I can't even walk. In the orphanage, I came in number one at treading water the longest with my legs and arms. Now I can't even walk down the street without tripping over my own toes. Now the teacher's bringing me into the hallway, asking me why when I write my name it looks differently. Why when I say my name does it sound like I have a speech impediment? And why am I walking, tripping over my feet all of a sudden? This was a big sudden change in my body. I went from having a normal body with just ADHD and needing glasses. I was born all the way to age 7, 6 years old. I was just a normal child with ADHD who needed glasses. But now this mother has made me a child at age 7 with ADHD, who needs glasses and now has a neurological disorder that causes nervous system problems, problems with moving his limbs. Doctors are also realizing it's a coordination issue, and teachers are realizing there's a sudden change in his body, and we got all this going on. So now we have that. But the mother is going to cause more mental problems by acting very inappropriately. Like, for instance, stealing her son's swimming medal away and then making up stories about it, calling her son a shithead, calling her son a thief and a kleptomaniac, calling her son a liar, at the doctor's office telling the doctor that he's making up stories about this swimming medal, even though this swimming medal was won in the orphanage and had his name on it from the orphanage, written by a staff member on the back. So it doesn't get any more proven than this, and it's not like anybody else is asking for this medal. This medal stayed in our house for over 15 years without a single person asking for it other than me, because it was mine. Nobody cared about that medal but me, because it was my medal. But my mother wanted to really fuck up my head, so she was going around trying to steal my accomplishments away and had me crying in another room for weeks on end. And then at the doctor's, when the doctor asks me what's wrong, and I tell him my mother stole my swimming medal away and it's making me feel sad and I want it back, my mother would then say I'm a liar, I'm a thief, I make up fantasies, I'm a pyromaniac, I'm trying to burn down her house, all because I played with a book of matches at the age of 5. So she's taking all these real world events and adding on details. So now I have anxiety that somebody's going to make up a story about me as well. So now at the age of 8, I have severe anxiety that my mother's going to make up a new story about me. And I have a stomach disorder too. My stomach and esophagus is now destroyed. I have acid reflux and I can't eat. I already had eating problems and now they've made permanently worse because my mother wants to feed me a full bottle of Epicac as a punishment. So we got that going on. So now I'm a kid with ADHD. I need glasses. I'm born with those two. My mother at the age of 7 has destroyed my nervous system and given me a neurological disorder. At that same about time, she destroys my stomach and esophagus. She's also fucking with my head, trying to make sure that I don't know what's going on, so my self-esteem has been destroyed. But she's also doing a lot of other fucked up shit that's caused anxiety and PTSD. Because now I'm having flashbacks of the night of the overdose, and I'm remembering my mother making up stories about me constantly at the doctor's, and I don't know what to do about it. But then I moved to Texas, and none of those doctors matter anymore because my mother cut them all off. All the doctors and teachers that were trying to help me, that my mother was screaming at and fighting with, and all that going on ended because my mother now brought me to Texas. My mother also gave me pills during an adoption that made me just pass out during the whole process. I was passed out on the bench for this whatever part of the adoption this was, and I was passed out for my adoption party afterwards. I was completely lethargic or passed out completely through the whole process. In the car, passed out. On the bench, passed out. And in my adoption party, as people give me gifts, passed out. People were asking me, why you look so tired? Why do you look depressed? Aren't you happy to be in this family? Aren't you happy to be in this family? Why do you look like you're about to fall asleep? It's because my mother just slipped me pills right before we got in the car. So we have all that going on. So my health is now really bad. What have I done about this after the doctor's office in Westford? Well, I'm talking to teachers and answering their questions honestly. But my mother cuts off all the teachers. So now I'm in Texas. What do I do in Texas? Well, I go into a doctor's office again, and the doctor's asking me questions, and what do? I answer it honestly. The worst thing about my body is this neurological disorder, the fact I can't move my arms and legs at times, and the fact that my skin or my nerves feel differently. Now, at this time, I didn't have the word nervous system, nerves, or neurologic. I didn't have those words. So I told the doctor about the overdose and said my body felt differently for life. Now, My mother heard this, and on the way out, my mother asked me, "Why did you say that?" And I said, "Because it's true." And that was the end of it. My mother never asked another question. She didn't want me talking about it. She said she didn't want me talking about it. Even though it needs to be talked about, I need to get help. Now, the teachers also saw me putting on jackets and having trouble walking around while playing outside. So the teachers in Texas also realized that. But my mother said I had Asperger's and I was mentally ill and that I was some mental illness. So they paid no attention. The school in Texas paid no attention to this because my mother had lied to them, and that's all they ever saw. See, the school in Westford saw me before I met this mother and before I had a neurological disorder. So they saw this sudden change in me in Westford. They saw me before the overdose and afterwards. So they could clearly see this change. But the school in Texas only had the after. But so they knew something was wrong. But when they asked my mother said, "Oh, it's some mental illness. He was born with it." Even though when they got me, there was nothing wrong with me. There was absolutely nothing wrong with me. I was coming in first in swim class. First grade went completely great. The only thing that went wrong is my mother wanted me held back and argued with the teacher for a long period of time. The teacher wanted me to go to second grade. My mother wanted me held back. That was the only problem, was with my mother once again. The problem wasn't with me. I passed first grade. The problem again was with my mother. She continued to do things like this my entire life. Well, I did everything I could to get help in Texas. Now, how about when she took me out of Texas? Because after I told the doctor that, my mother took me out of that doctor, out of that school, and put me in a cabin in New Mexico with no teachers, no doctors. So, what did I do to get help up there? I found another little girl getting abused by a big black man, and we told each other the horrible things happening to each other. When we got out of that program, my father sued the program for the horrible things happening in the program, and then just apologized and continued doing exactly those things that got me hurt in the first place. And then you would think I get medical care or some education to catch up. But no, my father wants to be a big property tycoon and wants to buy and sell property to enrich himself at the risk of his kid's future, at the risk of his kid not being able to get a job, at the risk of his kid not being able to pay his rent. He's now going to buy and sell houses and places in Maine. Okay, whatever. And I'm not going to get an education. The complete nut who keeps on drugging her child, she's going to now be a teacher too. So anyways, that happens. What do I do to get health care? Well, do I try to run away and walk 100 miles to a doctor? No. Is there a worker coming by the house? No. Is there anybody coming by the house in Maine that could help me? No. The only people there are my mother and father. And yes, I ask my father to help me as much as possible with his wife, which he cannot do. My father cannot get himself to tell his wife to stop doing horrible things. Even if she's doing horrible things, like treating her child like less than a chipmunk animal, like beating him with a ruler, poisoning him, telling him he has to be flat on the floor, and then getting ready to jump on him like a trampoline, and the whole family having to get up and say, "Stop hurting that child, stop hurting him." Stuff like that my father can't get himself to do. The rest of the family will tell her to stop, but my father cannot get himself to tell his wife to stop. Even when his wife is stealing his son's pills, popping them, and gets caught, his wife says it's only one pill, and she gets a total, "See, it's just one pill, no big deal." So he cannot get himself to tell her what she's doing is wrong, even when it's very clearly wrong. Like if you have your son on Vicodin because he just got brought to the emergency room. This Vicodin was just prescribed and is an active prescription. And the mother wants to keep it in her closet so that she can pop these pills. And the mother gets caught more than once popping these Vicodin. And then the son, sitting watching TV, sees her pop his Vicodin in front of him, and then goes tell the father, "Hey, mom is popping all my Vicodin, and there's not going to be much left when I need them." And then the father goes up there and the mother gives her that addict bullshit like, I can stop any time I want. It's only one time. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. That addict rhetoric, and all of a sudden my father's like, it's no big deal. You're in trouble, Zach, for having eyeballs and seeing it. That's it. Yeah, you were in the room watching TV, so it's all your fault. And it gets turned around like that. My mother steals my pills, pops an active prescription that I need, continues to take these pills, and somehow it's my fault. That's ridiculous. So what do I do after Maine? We moved to Chelmsford, and we're now in Chelmsford. What do I do then? I continue talking to doctors, but at this point, my mother's saying that all my stories are made up. They're all fantasies. My mother calls me a shithead. She calls me and at this point, we've moved around the country. They've lost contact with me. My mother has buried the truth in Westford. So she's just buried everything that has gone on with me. So there's no chance of me getting any help. But I asked for help all the way up to about 16, 17, 18. But I still don't know what it's called. And I start at the age of about 14 thinking that it might be allergies or something to do with allergies because Benadryls help. But then I get talked to a doctor and they say that's nothing. That Benadryl helps with epilepsy too. That in the 1800s or 1900s, when Benadryl was first invented, they used it for everything. Benadryl is an antihistamine, which is a class of drug that can be used for just about everything. There are antihistamine used in all types of medicine. I go, oh, really? They go, yeah, it can help with sleep. It can help with cramps. It can help with anxiety. Yeah, Vistarol, the med they give for anxiety, that's a antihistamine. You're kidding me. Vistarol is an antihistamine? Yes. And then I realized, oh, okay. So it's a very wide used drug. Just because Benadryl kind of helps a little bit with my epilepsy doesn't mean that Benadryl is the cure. But at a teenage years, at age 14, you take a drug like Benadryl and notice it helps with your shakes. And when you move your thumb, your leg doesn't bounce. And the fact that it makes you drowsy helps with sleep. And it works better than the Seroquel Trazodone Thorazine mix that feels like you're going to die every night. Just taking one Benadryl seems to work better than all that concoction. But the doctors want you on Thorazine, Seroquel, Trazodone, Lamictal, Wellbutrin, Ritalin, and a lot more for only sleep and ADHD. That's it. And anxiety, even though it doesn't help with my anxiety at all. I've told them that 100 times, that the clonidine makes my legs feel weak and doesn't help with my anxiety at all. So I don't, and my mother is the cause of my anxiety. So, I mean, she's always making up a new story about me. I'm always worried about the next story she's going to make up that's going to get me hurt. And my father's still doing it at the age of 31. He loves making up stories about me. I try to get medical care for a neurological disorder. My father calls me a fantasy spinner and I don't get any help. Instead, I die in the woods in a tree someplace. So I'm doing it now at the age of my 20s. I did everything I could from living in a tree to help myself. That was in Lowell. But then I realized I had to get an apartment and a phone. I needed a mailing address and a phone line if I ever was going to get medical care or help. So then I moved to New Hampshire and got a phone line and an address for 6 years. But New Hampshire and Rochester is a corrupt, poor town that likes to take advantage of the disabled and the poor. Like during COVID, all the disabled people were the only people at essential service jobs working. If you went to my gas station, we were open 7 days a week, but we only had disabled people with seizures and epilepsy that was with COVID working there. If you went to another business like Market Basket, it was only the disabled people that were working in Market Basket still. Why? They couldn't get the doctors to write them notes. All the wealthy white kids, they all got do not lift orders for kidney stones and bullshit. Meanwhile, all the people missing toes, legs, with diabetes, epilepsy, scars all over their body, broken bones, they were forced to work during COVID. And they were, even when they caught COVID, a lot of them weren't allowed to leave work because the COVID test wouldn't come positive. because there was a different strain of COVID. When other rich people like my sister get a diagnosis, even if their test is negative, they have a good doctor that knows. I mean, we got diagnosed with the flu. We had the flu. But see, our doctors wouldn't write us enough time out because we're an essential service worker. They wanted us disabled, broken, with COVID at work. And so all the disabled people were. If you went through the town of Rochester and Somersworth during COVID, you'll notice that every place that was open was staffed by people missing fingers, toes, epilepsy, falls, scars on their face, disabled completely. And that's who kept the towns running. So, yes, I have a lot of difficulty up here getting help, especially with my father notifying everybody that I'm some shithead, making up fantasies that can bust his balls all he wants. Yeah, just kill my son. Have him living in the woods and working for you. Yeah, that's the best way. Have him live up in a tree, bleeding into his testicles, keeping your commerce going. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. Yeah, that big scar on the right side of his face is probably from a fight. Even though there's hundreds of witnesses that see the seizures, and they know that scar is from a seizure, my father will make up a story like, oh, it's from a fall when drunk. It's from a fight. It's from a TV falling on his head. Oh, I can just imagine the stories coming out of my father's mouth. If people ask, well, what's that scar on your son's cheek's face? Your son says that scar is from a seizure with a table. That's the truth. The truth is there's blood in that bedroom right there on the wall because I had a seizure. My head hit a table. The table ended up basically punching me in the face. So the table cut the side of my face real bad. And because I had a seizure, there's nothing I could do about it. Because I had a seizure while standing up. I was having shakes, and then I lost the ability to move my legs and arms. And I got stuck, and then I just started seizing. And then on the way down, my right side of my face hit the corner of a table. And then I kind of did a side move where the blood just kind of spun around. Because, of course, the table, when it hit my face, my my body turned the opposite direction of the table and the blood just squirted all over the place, and then I was on the ground unconscious. I only remember going down, starting to shake, and then going unconscious right before the table hit me. And I was already seizing or shaking or about to have a seizure before I even started going down. I lost the ability to use my legs and arms first, right in the place. It's not fun. Sometimes I try to walk so it doesn't happen, and then I'll be in mid-step right as I have the seizure, like in Lowell. That one was really bad. Hundreds of witnesses also, lots of scars on my body from that one. But what does my father say about these seizures? I'd like to hear him and tell me about what he knows about them. He knows nothing about them because he hasn't talked to his fucking son. His son has died and had seizures on the side of the road with witnesses all around him, and he's never once had a conversation about his son's health. No, he'd rather make up fucking stories. My father will not call me and ask me about my seizures. Instead, he'll make up a story about me and say he knows it's true when he hasn't even been there for me to know what the fuck is up and down. You want to know about my seizures? You want to come look at the blood on the wall? You want to see the corner that did the damage, that gave me this scar on the side of my face? You want to see one of these seizures? Then all you got to do is spend time with me. If you spend time with me any winter, you would know this shit. But instead, you had me in New Mexico. Instead, you had me in Haverhill. So the people that know about this shit are the program staff that were able to pick it up. There's only about 2 staff members that saw me shaking and having to sit from the shaking and could see it was painful. Only 2 staff members in Haverhill were able to pick it up. 2. Many other doctors and teachers were able to pick it up as well. Why didn't you pick up my neurological disorder, Dad? Because many people did, and I've had it for 25 years. If you don't know something is wrong with my nervous system, then that's a problem with my father, not me. Because teachers realized it when under a year in Westford. It only took them a couple months. Other people realized it even in Texas. People realized it all the way in April. People still realize it today in under a year. Why did my father not see me shaking to the ground? My father has never seen a seizure. You're telling me you've never seen me have a full-blown seizure? Why? Where were you when the seizure in New Mexico happened? Where was you when the seizure in Chelmsford happened? Uh, where were you when the seizure in Lawrence happened? Actually, I think that was a. No, that wouldn't have been Lawrence. That would have been. What town was that? Lynn, actually. Yeah, Lynn. Not Lawrence, Lynn. So anyway, sorry. Where were you in the seizure in Lynn? Where were you the seizure in Lowell? Where were you during the other seizure in Lowell? Where were you during the other seizure in Lowell? Where were you during the neurological symptoms in Massachusetts during my childhood? Where were you during my falls? Where were you when my legs stopped working at age 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? Did you not realize my legs were stopped working at times? Did you not see that cold was affecting my nervous system? Did you not think that your wife needed some help with the fact that she was slipping me pills on a regular basis during my childhood when I was too young to defend myself, when I was too young to explain what was going on? I was only age 7. What's your excuse? I mean, I was only age 7 and I didn't know how to explain an overdose and I didn't know what an overdose was. I've never even heard the words overdose at age 7 and I only had a body for 7 years. But my father's had a body for over 70 years and he's known what a junkie and an overdose is probably since his 30s. He's probably seen a couple overdoses on TV as well. I mean, for goodness sake, I've been working on this trying to get better for 25 years. How much has my father done? How many times has he asked his son about his health? I mean, let's give an example. Okay, my father once asked me with my mother about my falls and my bumping in the furniture. And I gave him an honest answer. It just happens. I'm a normal person, I think. I just bump in the furniture, I fall down, and I get scraped up. That happens all the time. That was the answer I gave that day. So, as a father, what would you do? Bring your son to get looked at would be a good answer, right? Ask more questions. Keep an eye on your son, right? No, my father put me in the care of other people for 5 days. At that exact time, my mother made up a story and said me bumping in the furniture all the time is called self-harming and I'm just suicidal. My father said he didn't believe that and just did nothing about it. He said, I give up. Nothing. We're going to do nothing. My wife says it's self-harming. My son is all scratched up and cut up from bumping. He's always bumping in the stuff. I'm just going to do nothing. Well, whose fault is it that I didn't receive medical care? The son who wants medical care, that's being honest about his injuries, that's trying to get help. The mother trying to make sure that nobody helps her son because she knows she's responsible for the neurological disorder. And the mother that's making up stories and making up illnesses. Or the father who's doing nothing about it. Who's at fault here? Because my mother and father say it's all my fault. All my fault that I was poisoned. All my fault that my mother messed around with drugs. It's all my fault that my mother played doctor. After 25 years, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm getting better in the kidneys and GI, by the way, what's great. But winter is right around the corner, and I'm going to get hurt again just from the cold. Yes, I have seizures from cold. I have falls from cold. I have it from flashing lights. I have it from weird touches or sensations. And that's in anything in the nervous system, in the skin. If I move my thumb, my leg will bounce. So you can see where driving might be a problem. Move my hand and my right leg twitches. That might be a problem, huh? So I waited 15 years to drive, but all I need is a doctor. Then I can drive. Then I can work. Then I can be a normal person. But my father wants me to be less than human, and he doesn't want anybody helping me or putting this on paper or making this real. He wants his fantasies to be the real. His son's a shithead. Nothing has to be done. His son just has to die in the woods already and get it over with. Somebody just shoot that guy already so I can just get on with my shit. That's my father's opinion. Get rid of me, and then all is better.